Web3 gaming at scale. Over $1 billion in POGs flipped in 5 days.
Thank you for that intro, Olga. Yeah, Web 1, Web 2, I mean, we're bringing the Web 2 to Web 3, and today we have a really cool fireside chat from the POG team. I don't know how many of you remember POGs. I do from when I was young. It's a flip game of chance that is super fun. It's kind of like Pokemon, but like in a small circular form, and it was just a really fun game. So I have a lot of nostalgia and memories from that, and it's really cool and an honor to be here with the founder of the POG brand and the CEO and co-founder of POG Digital, because they are bringing POGs to Web3 on the blockchain. As you can see from the title of this fireside chat, over 1 billion flipped in 5 days. So we're going to get to that. But first, thank you so much, Kyler, for being here. It's an honor to be able to have this chat with you today.
Yeah, super excited. This is a pretty great platform, phenomenal conference, so we're super excited. Thank you.
Yeah, no, so we've been talking so much about, we've been handing out physical POGs, which, by the way, if you haven't been by the booth, we have a booth all the way at the other side of the show, and we're giving physical POGs and explaining some cool activations. So, yeah, why don't we start with just a little preface about, like, the history of POG, how it started, and what you guys are doing now in the digital world.
Yeah, absolutely. So the POG brand is a 35-year-old brand. It actually started about 120 years ago in Hawaii as a juice brand, and 35 years ago became the largest collectible in the world. So they sold 10 billion collectibles around the world in 35 different countries. We had about 180 to 200 million collectors worldwide, and now we're super excited to be bringing those collectors into the digital space through Web3 gaming.
200 million collectors in the physical world. You can imagine why I'm so interested in this use case and just what POG is doing, because that is so powerful to be able to bring that adoption. I always say big brands or brands in general are going to bring the next 300 to 400 million users into this space. So and so they're going with the trust of your brand of POG and now experiencing the digital world. So what are some of the activations that you guys are doing, and what is that looking like?
Yeah, so we've been creating video games on the blockchain for about 2.5 years now. We launched a tournament for our flagship game with Justin Kan, the founder of Twitch, and we had qualifications, and so we had about 1,200 people qualify to compete in the tournament. We had 250,000 games of POG played in 5 days, 4.7 million POGs flipped. And today's value would be about $1.1 to $1.2 billion worth of POGs flipped in 5 days. So there's definitely a high demand and a high value there for that game.
Wow, okay, so $1.2 billion flipped in 5 days is a proof of concept that the demand is there to interact with this brand. And what do you think makes it so sticky, or why do you think it's just had such great success and just your proof of concept as a brand there in the digital space?
Yeah, I mean, I played POGs as a kid. I think if you're 30 to 45 years old, you probably collect them and maybe competed on the playground. It is a brand that spanned, the gamut as far as partnerships. We launched collectibles with McDonald's and Coca-Cola, Barbie, Power Rangers, Pokemon, Star Wars, Lion King, Toy Story, and everybody pretty much who wanted to hit a kid's demographic. And so we're really, really excited to be kind of bringing a lot of those brands into the digital space. But as a collector from the 90s, I trust the brand. And I think a lot of the folks who are in crypto, whether they're software engineers or whether they're traders or just excited about getting into the space, I think they may resonate with that trust, and that, it's easy to say, like, I collected POGs in the past, and now I can collect them digitally and compete on a global playground. So I think it makes sense to folks.
Yeah, and we're going to get into the whole ecosystem and how you can interact with POG and what you guys are doing online, but I think it's important to start with your background, because you are a true, quote-unquote, degen yourself, right? So what was your background, what led you to wanting to activate this POG relationship?
Yeah, I'll go back. Like, I was a pro snowboarder and got into banking. I was working in banking in 2011, and found Bitcoin through a super intelligent kid. He was like 19 years old, and he had his bachelor's degree in computational neuroscience, and started mining Bitcoin in 2012 using these things called butterfly labs, which were ASIC mining rigs. And I was a victim of the Mt. Gox crash and hack, so lost all the Bitcoin that we had mined, but inspired me to get into technology. So the gentleman who was here from Google earlier, actually I got to help build some of the teams that he's leading. So after starting some recruiting agency work, I moved to Google to where I got to build the machine learning teams and cloud platform, then moved on to Unity where I built the first machine learning team with the now VP of AI at Google. His name's Danny Lang. We were teaching cars to drive in virtual reality, teaching video games to play themselves back in 2017. And then I got to go on and research blockchain. So how could 5 million developers who were building on Unity utilize blockchain technology to create an ecosystem where the gamers actually owned the assets? And you could compete with these assets across a plethora of games and then go and sell them on the market because they were yours, which is so much different than the way video games are built now. That didn't actually go anywhere. The CEO of Unity at the time, he wasn't interested in moving on that path after about 6 months of research. So I moved on to Rivian, where we launched the first electric truck. And once we had IPO'd that company, I was really excited to get back into crypto. It was like the 2021 bull run, kind of the peak. And my brother was running like an $800 million venture capital portfolio at the time, investing in VCs. And so together, he and I reached out to Julian Savigno, who owns the POG IP. And he was already researching blockchain technology and how it could kind of enhance the experience for folks. And 3 weeks later, we had a company that we built together, a subsidiary under the parent company. But yeah, I've been buying, I think, NFTs since 2017 and degening in cryptocurrencies and meme coins and stuff ever since.
Wow, that's an impressive background. I think POG Digital is in good hands, to say the least.
Thank you.
That's very cool. And so now POG is going digital. You just launched a drop with Coca-Cola, right? And that sold out pretty much immediately.
Yeah, so a collection of vintage collectibles that we authenticated on chain, very much like PSA does. But instead of providing a certificate of authenticity in a paper form, we put that on the POG blockchain. And we had about 400 collectibles sell out in 2 hours and revenued just over $100,000 in 2 hours.
Yeah, you've got that stickiness of like a meme community, and I know we've talked about this before, that POG is pretty much the ultimate meme coin, but with utility and with an audience from the Web 2 world that's coming into Web 3. And so for me, I see that as such a major player and a major force coming into this bull run now, that people are really interested also because of BlackRock and everything happening in the traditional world, and they see this brand now. Do you think that the stickiness comes from the trust behind it, and what kind of games are you building? Can you fill us in on your ecosystem a little?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've launched gaming collectibles on 5 different blockchains now. We started with Solana Labs. Our team actually helped build Unity for about 7 years. I recruited a number of folks that we'd worked with back at Unity. And the co-founder is also the head of collectibles at eBay, and another is the head of gaming at Solana Labs. And so we created first prototype on Solana and then launched on Ethereum. We were the first, I think, legacy brand to ever launch on Bitcoin. So we have our ordinals inscribed at 129,000. And we've been creating games of skill, but we've created an ecosystem where any game developers can create games of skill or games of chance using our collectibles and using our, I guess, arcade token, which is a cryptocurrency. So we really wanted to decentralize the ability to build and make sure that, just like at Unity, it was a low barrier of entry for developers.
That's really cool, and I like the interoperability that you're working on multiple chains. I did notice one of the things that drew me to you initially was that you were building on the Theta chain, which is one of my favorites, and actually, it was in my presentation earlier as a top AI play infrastructure, and there's so much going on there, and Theta's done an incredible job at kind of like getting big brands on board, and so I saw that you guys started building there. You're the biggest project on Theta now, or one of the biggest, correct? And so what's going on there, and tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's fun that we can kind of connect on that passion for Theta. If it wasn't for the team at Theta, we probably wouldn't be where we are today. Through their collaboration, we've been able to launch our own blockchain, and that's where the collectibles from Coca-Cola sit, and we'll be bringing Star Wars and Barbie and Lion King and Toy Story and a number of other brands to that blockchain later. and our arcade opens in April. But with the help of Theta, we got to partner with AWS directly. Amazon's provided us with a year's worth of runway, developers, and resources to launch our blockchain. And through that, we can now support this arcade that allows you to sign on and utilize your email instead of having to know how to use a Web3 wallet. You can compete and collect without, without much of a barrier of entry. But yeah, Theta is absolutely incredible. Their proprietary technology is what led us to launch a blockchain there. And for anybody who's really sophisticated in the blockchain space, there are a number of sub-chain opportunities with Avalanche and with Polygon, but both of those chains have issues scaling subnets. And so the way that Theta has been built, not only with their proprietary digital rights management and the way you can scale content across their blockchains, but the way that a subchain can operate even with the main chain going down was really the biggest reason that we were able to launch with them.
So you needed that security that they provide in the validator nodes, which are also, you're paired with some top brands in the space, correct?
Yeah, so because of them, we actually have Google and Samsung and Sony and CAA and a number of other larger brands in the space as our validator nodes, as our enterprise validators, making sure that our blockchain will stay secure and run smoothly.
Yeah, and one of the things I like about you guys, I've seen a lot of brands try to enter this space or just celebrities with their own stuff that's happening, and a lot of them fail because they don't focus on building something sticky and on community. They focus on what are you going to earn from this? What's the outcome? They focus on the earn side instead of the actual fun side. So people are having a lot of fun with POGs online.
Yeah, absolutely. Just as much as I'm a degen for all of these projects that launch, I think a lot of these degens are really excited about POGs. So we've had a number of collaborations with the Bored Ape Yacht Club and D-Gods and Neo Tokyo and Jack Butcher and a number of other phenomenal artists on Ethereum and Solana. And we'll continue to do that. We've actually brought a lot of those Web3 brands into the Web2 space, providing collectibles and physicals for, the 200 million collectors of POGs. And so it's a really kind of beautiful relationship we've got with the Web3 space. We can provide them access to Web2 collectors in the physical space. And then for, those Web2 brands that want to move into the digital space, we're able to launch them and onboard them very, very easily. And they don't have to actually be responsible for the community that they run or for the utility. They can create a collection with us and immediately be available in dozens of games and have thousands and thousands of players instantly. And so the next, I think, challenge for everyone is how do we bring the rest of the 200 million collectors of POG into the digital space? And so we're excited about a lot of the folks who are building games for our holders.
I like what you touched on there about they don't have to be responsible for the community. And that's one of the biggest problems that I've seen as an avid crypto user and NFT degen like you and stuff. I've seen that they don't understand what it takes to build a community, to keep the community engaged, and they don't have that built-in audience necessarily in the digital way or in the physical world. So when they launch something, they don't understand the dynamic behind keeping that up. So the cool thing about launching with you guys is that they're partnering with an IP, icon from the 90s, and you guys are the ones with the built-in community that you bring to them, right? So that seems like a match made in heaven, and that brings me to my next thought, which is here at the iGaming part of Sigma and AIBC, it's really interesting to see how Web3 and crypto can kind of converge with the two. So how do you see that kind of fitting in? How do you see the entrance of crypto and the convergence of iGaming and maybe creating some fun games in that way?
Yeah, I mean, out there, outside these doors, there's a number of phenomenal game creators, and they're creating a lot of games of chance and games of skill, and they're the ones who we actually envisioned building our ecosystem for, to provide an on-ramp for all of our physical collectors. And so what we are excited about is there are some folks out there who are building games of chance and games of skill that will, provide an exciting way for our collectors and our holders to use these coins and to compete for high value collectibles. And that's really what it's all about. We've got the audience, we've got the collectors, we've got the population of folks that want to come online and compete in great games. And so we're excited to be here surrounded by a lot of folks who create great games.
Yeah, there's so many possibilities when you've got an IP like you guys do and that built-in audience just to kind of like bridge all of these worlds. So run us through a little bit like what your ecosystem looks like, the plug-and-play model. So the POG token, which is on Theta Swap right now, but not officially launched, right, in May. So how will that ecosystem look? Like, what do you use the POG token for, and how do you kind of like participate in this arcade?
Yeah, absolutely. So the model is exactly like a coin-operated arcade. I think a lot of us in here probably played pinball or Mario Kart or, well, maybe like got so many games in my head. I'm thinking like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and Sonic the Hedgehog. You'd walk into an arcade and you would drop your quarter in and you would compete, and you'd get your tokens or you'd get your tickets and you'd go redeem them on an arcade wall for prizes. And so that's exactly how we've built our ecosystem, right? You can grab these coins, you can go compete in a number of games, and you can walk away with more coins or collectibles that you wouldn't find anywhere else. And so there's two kind of points for our ecosystem. What do you get from competing? We are tokenizing everything from Joe Montana autographed helmets to Edition 1 comic books from Superman, all the way to Michael Jordan basketball cards. Pretty much any collectible that you can find in the physical world, we can turn that into a digital POG, put it into the arcade or into the prize pool, and through competition you can earn the token, walk out and redeem it, and at your doorstep days later is that collectible that you've found. Now, as the next bull run kind of comes into fruition, I think a lot of folks who are coming back to crypto or coming to crypto for the first time, they might not understand a Shiba Inu, they might not understand a Pepe or a Bonk or a Dogecoin, but what they are comfortable with is a brand and an ecosystem that they've already engaged in their childhood. They know what it is like to collect POGs. They already trust the brand. And so we've created an on-ramp for all of them to pick up some coins, whether you're buying collectibles of ours on the street, whether you're buying partner products like a Nerf gun and you scan the QR code and you get your first 5 to 10 coins, jump into the arcade, open up an email, and all of a sudden you've got these coins that you can compete in these games for new prizes and work your way up to be a holder of a substantial amount of coins, and then you are a massive owner of our DAO. You get to have voting rights through the coin, and now you can decide what happens with the assets we own, whether they're the CryptoPunks or the Bored Apes or the Meebits or the other assets that we own through that DAO.
So they essentially become semi-stakeholders in that DAO, so to speak, and that's super cool. I mean, this is like a really good example about how to like put all these moving parts together to successfully. I mean, you guys are really creating something special, and I love the plug-and-play model where you take the POG token, you could essentially plug that into any different space and have access, so that's accessibility, because from what I understand, some of these POGs are going for like $5,000 to $10,000 or high-ticket prices, so the POG token makes it accessible to everyone. You don't need to have these high-value assets to play, right?
That's exactly right. We found that like when we launched the first tournament, people didn't necessarily want to play with their $200 POGs because it takes 5 to 10 to 15 to play. And so by creating this coin, it creates a very low barrier of entry. But what's really interesting is like we can take a POG off the street, we can authenticate it the same way that PSA does, we can give it a grade, we can throw all of that information into the metadata on-chain for this asset, and all of a sudden turn a 30-cent collectible into a $3,000 collectible just by substantiating it on the blockchain. And then people can play to collect those. But the digital-only assets like our founding Slammer go for $5,000 to $6,000. Right now, the lowest priced one is $25,000. And it's something that we weren't necessarily expecting, but it's created a really fun aspect. So people can compete using coins and maybe win a $25,000 asset through gaming.
That's so exciting. It just gives this nostalgic feel back from the 90s. And for everybody in the audience who doesn't remember or know what POGs is, if you're in a country where they weren't, can you explain a little bit how the game works?
Yeah, so you would find these through your closest collectibles shop, or get them in your Happy Meal, or open a bag of Doritos, or get a Coca-Cola and you'd get a POG. And so everybody who was making POGs, like they were very, very abundant, even to the point where it was hard to find cardboard at the time. And so as kids, you and I would show up to the playground, you'd have your POGs, I'd have mine, and we'd kind of negotiate on which ones we were going to put into the stack, right? And then there were these little circular cardboard discs, you'd stack them up, and we'd each have our Slammer or our Keen or whatever you want to call it, and we'd take turns hitting this like pile of collectibles, and whatever flipped over face up, you would get to take home. And so it really does lend itself to, you know, the iGaming space. It was essentially the first gambling experience for kids on the playground, though I probably won't admit that anywhere outside of this, but don't quote me on that. But that was where my first experience of collecting and gambling kind of came from.
Yeah, it's considering we're at an iGaming conference, it's a fitting kind of example of how we could picture it, right? But it's a fun game at the end of the day. This is about having fun. Technology is about bringing joy, right, at the end of the day. So if we can use the technology in Web3 to bring joy through the POG IP, I mean, that's something really special. Can you, just as we wrap this up, let us know anything interesting on the roadmap coming up or that people should have in mind?
Yeah, so we are expanding into some Hollywood activations where you'll start to see POG in really exciting ways on your television and maybe on the big screen. We've got our arcade, which is already optimized for AR and VR experiences. But more than anything, we've got some very, very exciting developers who have partnered with POG to develop games so that all of our holders in the physical space have an easy onboarding experience and have something exciting that they can compete in to grow their collection digitally.
Oh, that's so cool. I'm getting the nostalgic feel just having this talk again. And POG, I'm just so excited for what you guys are going to do this year. Is the ultimate meme coin, but so much more, just about fun, about joy. And I think you guys are going to be one of the leading brands, you know, to lead the way. Blaze the trail, basically, to show them how it's done. So I'm so excited to see what POG does this year. Please stop by the booth and feel free to pick up your pack of POGs and have a chat with the founder who's here as well of the POG IP and Kyler from POG Digital. And thank you guys so much for being here. And thank you so much, Kyler, for sharing.
And thank you so much for helping us get here. This is great.